So, the Vampire Coast has been out for a few days now, and with early access in the Everchosen and all the games we got to play and watch, a meta has started to develop a bit between the zombie pirates and their rivals from other races. The Vampire Coast is a strong faction, without question, but a faction with clear-cut strengths and weaknesses. They match up really well against some races and kind of poorly against others. Against the High Elves and Wood Elves, they kind of get outranged and drown in a hail of arrows, and when not a single unit in your roster has shields, you don't want to be fighting in the shade. Archer spam is a problem for them. But against factions like Norska and Chaos, they can really impose their will, dominate the skies, and quickly snipe out high-value targets. So, one way to deal with that as Chaos is to invest heavily in an air force that can zone out deck droppers and quickly dive bomb into the back lines. If you're playing as the zombies, you've got options, and one of them is to just go really wide. Swarm the field with armor-piercing chaff, layers upon layers of handguns and summons, and a Vampire Fleet Admiral of the Lore of Death to Buna and Spirit Leech stuff into the Netherrealm, with a Captain for heals and Drown Dead support. But I think Luther and a Terrorgeist or two will be pretty common in this matchup as well. Stuff like that is a big reason why Vampire accounts are such a nightmare for Chaos in the first place. But Deck Droppers are a unit that are fine in plenty of matchups, but kind of break the game in others. At a super low price of 700 gold, the amount of damage output and utility you get from them is pretty absurd. And if you bring 4 or 5 of them against factions without many ranged options, you can sometimes just kind of auto-win by sitting on top of high-value targets all game long and sniping them out. And the Lamprey's Revenge, with their innate regen, high mass, and fantastic weapon strength, can really help secure the back lines and kind of deal with the monsters or any high-value stuff they manage to get back there. So, what does this all mean? Well, it means that Chaos can't afford to let Luther or his deck-dropping minions provide close air support, because with 130 range, 53 missile damage bats, nothing will withstand that kind of AP shellacking for long. Feral Manticores are an answer, a pretty good one in fact, and already we're seeing this unit used way more play on the II patch than we ever did before, and that's for good reason. It's a cheap, simple way to help zone out deck droppers and goon heroes and lords when the time comes. And of course, for a front line, Chaos Warriors are the way to go in this matchup. High armor, great shields, they're cheap, they're cost efficient, they are meant to get stuck in and bruise their way through hordes of undead. For the Vampire Coast, a captain with Lore of Vampires, Invocation of the Heck, and Drown Dead, and a build that isn't nearly as cheesy as it could be. Only 2 deck dropper handguns for the air contingent, and a polearm fleet admiral on foot. Very hard to isolate and kill that way, and he can bring Von Horseman Speculum, which is a huge debuff to weapon damage, attack, and defense in an AoE, which means on top of Hornswaggle, already a very potent hex. Every 90 seconds, he's wrecking the combat effectiveness of enemy lords. So, a Chaos Lord on a Chaos Dragon, an Exalted Hero, and 2 Feral Manticores is quite a potent air force. Not something you see every day with Chaos, and he's fully kitted out with the Filth Mace and Pendant of Slaanesh in case of an aerial duel with Luther Harkin and some Terrorgeist Goonies. Also backed up by those Feral Manticores out on the flanks, and the Infantry Corps is pretty simple. 1 Halberd, 1 Great Weapon for trading with Death Guard if they're brought, a bunch of shields, and the Demon's Pew Forsaken are particularly good here with their -5 melee attack aura from Swarm of Flies and 64 weapon strength. They can chew through deckhands in about 20 seconds. So, as you might imagine, deck droppers are going to get things popping off with some shots early on, trying to make that Feral Manticore rampage, which is something that you always have to be very cognizant, very aware of, and Spirit Leech down on the Chaos Dragon to poke him down a bit, and remember that he can't heal. Chaos can never heal, which is going to be an issue for them in a kind of long attrition type battle. So as the Marauders charge into the deckhands early on, Feral Manticore getting a little bit too far up, and quickly gonna realize it and pull it away, but that does mean a handgun volley for free, and all that armor-piercing shot. When 120 models are all firing at the exact same thing, that is some serious damage output. Even if they do miss most of their shots, it will cause the Feral Manticore to rampage right off the start, and that is what you have to be very aware of, very cautious of. Because once it rampages, you no longer have control, and that means that more handguns can kind of cycle in and shoot it down early on. So that is a problem. More handguns firing into the Chaos Lord, and a blobby engagement out here on the left flank. Again, do not want to let that happen, but there is no Vortex. There is no wind spell here to punish that blob. So not the worst thing ever. They will be able to take a lot of solace in the fact that they're near their buddies and kind of get that leadership up. Normally, very bad idea. 1 Vanguard's Revenge could blow it apart, but there's no Purple Sun Azarius. There's no wind spell here. You see Exalted Hero and the Manticore quickly closing down those deck droppers in the back, and that will force the handguns to turn around, which will allow the Chaos Lord to just charge in there on the Chaos Dragon, and Noxious Fumes, Tzeentch breath going everywhere, Chaos Infantry getting into combat, and that is exactly how you deal with handguns. Unleash the dragon and get in there and start chopping them up, and they will quickly start crumbling. Fate of Buna down on some Chaos Warriors in the center. I would say, honestly, not worth it at all. He's brought Fate of Buna here to deal with Chaos Knights or other really high value stuff. 750 gold, not worth it. I would save it. Maybe just use Invocation of the Heck instead. You don't want to cast that on Chaos Warriors that only cost that little. So Exalted Hero and Feral Manticore can now come in from behind on top of those Lamprey's Revenge, who do carry blunderbusses in the battle, so they will disrupt enemy formations very nicely, and they have very high weapon strength, but a breath attack from the Chaos Dragon into the flank of a huge blob of deckhand halberds and regular deckhand mob, and they are going to be immolated under scouring fire. And look at that damage. It's going to melt them, and already leadership plummeting, as you would expect. 100 kills from that single breath attack. Really nice stuff in the center. But the Scurvy Dogs have sprung their ambush now. Actually a really good pick here, but you have to be hyper aware not to send them in too early. Their one job is to nip at the heels of routing troops and prevent them from rallying. That is it. They will quickly melt in sustained combat, so at most you can maybe give Chaos Warriors a love tap from behind to shove them in the direction of wavering, but that's it. If they're dead before the halfway point of the battle, you probably wasted them, but super good if they're still around in late game situation. And here in the woods, Lamprey's Revenge, the Chaos Lord, and all those Chaos Warriors fighting it out under the canopy, in the mangroves, trying desperately to break each other's flank as the halberds huff and puff their way back to close the back door and prevent those rotting Prometheans from getting in the back lines. Deck droppers are still being really annoying, but the Manticores and Exalted Hero doing exactly what they need to do. Shutting them down, preventing them from getting really good shots into the main line or on the Chaos Lord, just kind of zoning them out. And back here, halberds fighting the rotting Prometheans, and one will get his arm tugged off. Not a fun way to go, and the other sent flying, his brother in arms sent flying 30 feet over the top of another hermit crab. And they're making their stand there. Those halberds doing really well right now, holding the line, making sure those rotting Prometheans don't get that hammer and anvil off they really want. The Vampire Captain, not in a good spot. This is some Predator stuff right here. Trying desperately to escape, but how do you run away from a Chaos Dragon? You can't, it's too fast, and as she swings one more time, say goodbye to your head. I will relieve you of that, good ma'am. You are now dead, and you will not be coming back. Vampire Captain is out of the fight, and the Chaos Lord has already made a huge impact on this battle. And so is the Exalted Hero and the rest of the Air Force. Less glamorous, less flashy for sure, but they've been poking away at those deck droppers all game long, and it's paying huge dividends as another Dark Fire arcs from the Chaos Lord. Might have done as much damage there to Chaos Warriors as it did the zombies, but hey, real cool. If it looked awesome, it was worth it. And they were wavering anyway, so not a huge deal. But down into the handgunners, Serpentine, just a humongous two-headed snake barreling through the undead like a train. Cannot be touched, can't be stopped, can't be moved, can't be rocked, imposing its will in the handgunners, and soon they will crumble. And just eating them up, tasting some good old-fashioned zombie snacks. And that's another range unit offline as the deck droppers are pretty much on their last legs. The the Manticore, Feral Manticore should be able to finish that unit off. Over here, the Demon Spew, almost up to their 140 kills right now. They have ripped through those summons, ripped through the zombies, and now are free to get into the back and start hammering anviling on that stuff. But Lamprey's Revenge are going to be a big issue. There is not a lot of bonus for Slarge on the field to deal with those crabs, and with their blunderbusses and their high weapon strength, they're really good melee stats, and that regeneration, taking them down is going to be a real challenge. And they can mess up an Exalted Hero for sure, especially if he's not backed up by the Chaos Lord or by the Feral Manticores. They're going to be a real issue. Balance bar starting to shift a little bit in Chaos' favor. The Exalted Manticore certainly having some trouble, and the Vampire Fleet Admiral does have that bonus for Slarge, but an RKO from behind gonna prevent that charge into the flank of the unprotected Exalted Hero. Feral Manticore saving his bro right there. That was awesome. And the deck droppers in the back getting tied down by the Chaos Lord. Things are starting to look very iffy for the zombie pirates as the Chaos Warriors move up and overrun the back here. There is no longer any front line. All the halberds, all the zombie summons are gone, and it will mostly be up to Lamprey's Revenge, the Hermit Crabs, and their regeneration, and their blunderbuss and their short-range volleys. The Exalted Hero and the Chaos Lord finally shutting down the last of these deck droppers, and as they plummet to the earth, that will pretty much seal the deal and the Vampire Pirates will concede, and that will be your game. Chaos runs over it in the air, runs over it in the infantry fight, and that can be one way to deal with deck droppers. Now again, they could have been much more dickish in their army composition. You can easily bring 4 or 5 in that matchup, and in that case, things can get a little bit more tough, but I was expecting that. I was ready for that. That is why I had 4 flying units. It's not a build you see very often with Chaos, but it might very well be something that you kind of have to try out and see if it works for you when you do this matchup. Because if you do not invest heavily in the air, or in bringing a lot, and I do mean a lot of Marauder Horsemen, you're going to have no good way of zoning out the deck droppers, and those handguns outrange your Marauders. There's no way that you're going to be able to skirmish them all down, and especially if 4 of those are all targeting 1 unit, each one of your Marauder Horsemen will just start dropping like crazy. So having flyers that are fast, have that smaller hitbox, can maybe dodge some shots on the way in, that can be the way to go. Now, I do think Luther Harkin and a Terrorgeist, or maybe even 2, might be common in this matchup, and in that case, things get scary for sure. I mean, there's going to be an aerial duel there, which is why I brought that Pendant of Slanesh for the plus 44 melee attack and the extra speed, and why I brought that Exalted Hero. And remember, Chaos Lord on a Chaos Dragon has fire damage, which is huge when you're fighting Luther or you're fighting any Terrorgeist, because they have regen, which means they have a 25% weakness to fire damage, and he can really rip them up. Now, when they're 2 or 3, and Hornswoggle's getting thrown in there, and other debuffs like that, they can cycle that with a Vampire Fleet Captain. That gets really scary, and that's why I think that this is going to be such a hard matchup for Chaos, but it is doable. I think you just might want to think about investing heavily in the air, and you can see why the Demon Speed were so good. I mean, they got over 180 kills. They just shreked stuff. Really fun battle. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I think if you're trying to go Chaos or Norska, Feral Manticores are certainly going to be one option there. Peace out.